How much nitrogen do you really need to buy every year? Learn more from Glen Rabenberg in the SoilWorks episode focused on correcting the cause of rising bills related to nitrogen inputs. It is always cheaper to correct the cause than react to the symptom.
This is the SoilWorks Correct the Cause podcast featuring Glen Rabenberg and brought to you by SoilWorks and Acres, U.S.A. It's that time, episode 7 of the SoilWorks Correct the Cause podcast. My name is Ryan Slabaugh, and I'm hosting this series. In the 6th episode, we went through the question and corrected the cause of unhealthy soil. In this episode, we are going to talk about your nitrogen program and how to correct the causes of nitrogen deficiency. Our goal today will be to help you understand why nitrogen bills are increasing and how to better utilize the available nitrogen in the air and the soil. Welcome, Glenn. How are you feeling?
Hey, thanks. I tell you what, I got a good night's sleep, so get ready. I am ready to rip.
Well, then, I guess I better get to it. I'll start off with the question we started off the show with. Why is my nitrogen bill increasing?
Oh, boy. Get in line if you want to ask that one. Anybody that asks that question, depending on who they ask, they're going to get a different answer. Kind of like going to a political event and listening to all the answers every politician gives you. It's really simple from the way we look at it, and we'll see if anybody agrees or disagrees with me. Going back to the beginning of time, and I believe in creation, there was a plan in the 6 days that everything was put together. And I don't think it's an accident that the atmospheric air that we breathe naturally contains 78% nitrogen. This nitrogen that's in the air isn't available to plants, but it has to get pushed down into the soil with a high pressure front, which is heavy sinking air. And what we're finding is there are a lot more compaction problems in the soil everywhere we go, not just in the United States, but in other countries. And as this soil compaction gets hard, it does not allow this atmospheric nitrogen-containing air to sink deep into the soil to feed the nitrogen-fixing microbes that will convert it into wonderful plant-usable nitrogen. And the beautiful thing about this is these nitrogen-fixing microbes in the soil can make plant-usable nitrogen out of thin air. It's their job, and they've been doing it since the beginning of time, but they have to have raw ingredients to work with, and that raw ingredient is air. So in most cases, the lack of air going deep into the soil is why most growers are having an increasing nitrogen bill on their operation.
Okay, I only get a few questions about nitrogen, so I have to ask this one. We hear a lot about organic nitrogen. We hear a lot about synthetic nitrogen. Does synthetic nitrogen decrease soil carbon as well?
Synthetic nitrogen, and here's the other thing that we're seeing. I'm going to bounce back from this question to the first question, but the other reason that most growers' nitrogen bill is increasing is the plant has a reduced carbon and oxygen level. What do I mean by that? A plant's job is to grab sunlight, water, and minerals and make sugar. This is photosynthesis, and the result of photosynthesis is the production of sugar. And the sugar is made up of carbon and oxygen, and that's what the majority of the plant wants to be made of. But if the carbon and oxygen isn't there to the level that the plant wants, it will take nitrogen as a substitute. Typical scenario, if we look at something, I'd love to have a steak every night, but that isn't reality, and there's some times that I get a hot dog or a pizza or something even worse. But the reason the nitrogen is going up as far as these farmers' bills is because the air in the soil has gone down, and the soil carbon the nitrogen is not a good thing for soil carbon. So as we look at the whole ecosystem and the health of the soil, that soil needs to have carbon and oxygen in it to make carbon and oxygen in the plant, and the microbes need it. And a lot of this nitrogen, it isn't just damaging the soil carbon, but we're also seeing it being very tough on the soil microbes. So the more nitrogen that you put out, probably the less respiration your soil is having. And nitrogen seems to have a negative effect on soil carbon, yes.
Thank you, Glenn. Always interesting stuff. Last question about nitrogen. Isn't the air full of nitrogen? Are we using it right now, and why can't I utilize it in my plants?
Yeah, good statement is, there is nitrogen in the air, and the reason that you can't and people aren't utilizing it, and again, don't kill the messenger, but these farms have gotten big, the equipment has gotten large, and the actual footprints or boot prints from the owner or from the manager within the field are almost extinct. And what I mean by that is farmers aren't walking the fields like they used to, because they can plant a genetic modified seed, they can kill everything else except the plants that they put in the ground, and then they come back and harvest whatever Mother Nature gives us. And keep in mind, calcium is the mother of the soil, and soil being part of Mother Nature or Mother Earth, make no mistake, when Mama's not happy, nobody's happy. And I think Mother Nature is telling us very subtly that we're not paying attention and we're not respecting her. So as we can get that soil opened up, get it more relaxed, get some of the stress out of it, and that's just adding calcium to the soil. If you've got a problem in the house, what you have to do is you have to introduce Mom into the soil, and a good mother will take charge of the problem and get things back in line. So adding calcium topically is the easiest, cheapest way to start getting your soil opened up, allowing the microbes to do their job, and start reducing your nitrogen bill.
Thank you, Glenn, and thank you to our listeners for hanging in there through the nitrogen episode 7 of the SoilWorks Correct the Cause podcast. In summary, we talked about how nitrogen bills are increasing for all sorts of reasons, mainly because we're not finding ways to use the available nitrogen in the soil. We can do that by adding calcium and ensuring our mineral balances are correct. A lot of great information in this one to help you save money and increase your yields. Once again, Glenn, how'd I do?
Tell you what, I think my job is done here. You've got it, man.
As all of you know at home by now, Glenn is far, far too kind. So thank you, Glenn. Thank you for listening to the 7th episode in this SoilWorks series. Stay tuned for episode 8 coming up, which will help you correct the cause of problems in your biological farming system. Why isn't it working? Thanks from SoilWorks, Glen Rabenberg, and everyone here at Acres USA. Find those causes and get them corrected.